A man disguised as a local Muslim, complete with a long beard and cap, seems engrossed in a book. But his attention is elsewhere, focused on a family of three, a father, a mother, and a young daughter. This Muslim man is none other than Robert McCall, undercover and watching carefully. As the father rises to head to the dining car, McCall follows suit, striking up a conversation with him. When asked about his reason for visiting Turkey, McCall reveals he's seeking a Turkish man who married an American woman, had a daughter with her, and then abused and forced the daughter back to Turkey. With this, it's clear that McCall is talking about him. The man slowly gets up, leaving the dining car, while signaling to his entourage to handle Robert. Little do they know that they're about to pick a fight with a highly skilled vigilante. Robert swiftly neutralizes his attackers with great ease, leaving them all incapacitated on the train floor. Once he has dispatched the goons, Robert calmly returns to the Turkish man. As he adjusts his sleeves, he offers the man a choice: endure the usual level of pain or suffer something far more excruciating. The scene transitions from the tension-filled train to the bustling city streets, where we see Robert driving a sleek black car, working as a Lyft driver. He pulls up outside a building to pick up Sam, an elderly man embroiled in a complex case to find his long-lost sister. As a driver, Robert is often engaged in conversations with his passengers, observing some while chatting with others. His life now appears mundane, yet far from ordinary. Grace, the mother of the young girl Robert rescued on the train, enters the office of her attorney. In there, she's greeted with the sight she has been longing for: her daughter, safe and unharmed. The mother and daughter fall into each other's arms, overwhelmed with relief and tears. All of this was made possible by Robert's intervention, and their gratitude towards him is immeasurable. Yet, Robert remains on the road, unassuming and quietly observant, ready for the next passenger and the next mission that life might throw at him. The scene abruptly shifts to a home in Brussels. A man named Kelbert walks in, casually removing his coat, expecting a normal evening at home. However, the sight that greets him in his dining room is anything but ordinary. His wife, face marred with bruises and blood, is seated at the dining table, crying. Before Kelbert can comprehend the situation, a man coldly shoots his wife right before his eyes. The men then force Kelbert to hold a gun and face it to himself. A moment later, a gunshot rings out. The narrative abruptly switches back to Robert, unfazed, continuing his job as a Lyft driver. He pulls up to collect his next fare, a man assisting a visibly distressed woman into the cab. She appears to be in severe pain, but Robert remains silent. Later, Robert arrives at the man's apartment, informing him that he'd taken the woman to the hospital, where they'd discovered multiple injuries on her. He advises them to do the right thing and attend to her. But the man attempts to attack him. With swift precision, Robert uses the man's card to slash him, subsequently breaking his and his buddy's bones in a swift, brutal showdown that lasts no more than 30 seconds. It becomes clear that Robert is not an ordinary man. His combat skills and ruthless efficiency show him to be extraordinarily dangerous, a skill he learned from his previous life. When Robert returns home, he's pleasantly surprised to find his old friend Susan waiting for him. They reconnect over dinner, during which Susan reveals that she's working on a high-profile murder case involving a couple in Brussels. Her partner on the case is a man named Dave. In the midst of their conversation, Susan gently reminds Robert that it's his late wife's birthday, a fact he'd forgotten. Concerned for his well-being, she suggests he make an effort to socialize more and possibly find a new companion. The following day, Robert discovers that Fatima's garden and wall have been vandalized. As he begins cleaning up the mess, a young man named Miles Whitaker approaches, suggesting that it's the landlord's job, not Robert's. After some negotiation, Miles agrees to repaint the vandalized wall for $350. Elsewhere, Susan engages in an online chat with Dave. They discuss the Brussels murder case and the puzzling fact that the victims were actually their fellow agents. In a bid to distract himself, Robert spends some time with Sam, a Lyft passenger who confides in him about being separated from his sister during the World Wars when he was just 9 years old. A treasured photograph confirms her identity. It's the same face immortalized in a portrait. Meanwhile, Susan and Dave arrive in Brussels to investigate the scene. As there is no evidence pointing towards a homicide, the case has been officially classified as the husband losing his mind and taking both their lives. Susan is visibly disturbed by the blood spattered on family photos. After thoroughly examining the crime scene, they depart. Susan and Dave head back to their hotel, discussing the mysterious circumstances surrounding the deaths of their colleagues. In the elevator, Susan bids Dave goodbye, reminding him to pick up some chocolate before they leave the country. As Susan enters her hotel room, she is ambushed by two men. Despite her valiant attempts to fend them off and managing to injure one, they overpower her, pinning her in the bedroom. Meanwhile, back home, Robert is spending time with Miles, imparting life advice. This peaceful moment is interrupted by a phone call from Brian, Susan's husband. His smile fades instantly, replaced by anger. Without a word, he abruptly ends his conversation with Miles and walks away. He immediately travels to Washington, D.C., to attend Susan's funeral, offering his condolences to Brian. He promises to bring the perpetrators to justice. Brian informs Robert that Susan never carried jewelry, implying her attack was not a random act of violence. Intrigued by this information, Robert decides to investigate Susan's murder himself. Using his skills, he decrypts Susan's phone to identify who she was communicating with before her death. He also hacks into the hotel's security system, gaining access to the surveillance footage. Studying the crime scene photos and replaying the elevator footage repeatedly, he senses that something is off, sparking his intuition to unravel the mystery surrounding Susan's death. In another part of town, the two assailants who killed Susan are indulging in some leisure time. However, their revelry is short-lived as a cell phone rings. Upon answering the call, a bomb detonates, decimating their apartment. The orchestrator turns out to be one of the three men responsible for the cold-blooded murder in Belgium. Simultaneously, Robert reunites with his former partner, Dave. Dave is visibly shocked to see Robert alive, revealing that he had attended what he believed to be Robert's funeral. He expresses disappointment that Robert, despite their 6-year-long partnership, hadn't told him he was alive. Robert, ignoring Dave's reproach, informs him about his suspicion that Susan's murder was a premeditated act, pointing out the peculiar fact that she hadn't pressed her elevator button. Seeking answers, Robert delves into Susan's last case, suspecting it could provide insights into her murder. He mentally reconstructs the crime scene, visualizing himself present at the site. His sharp, analytical mind starts piecing together potential scenarios, attempting to unravel the sequence of events that led to Susan's demise. He contacts Dave and goes over the facts of Susan's murder and the Belgian couple's murder. Robert spots a common thread: both the crimes were perpetrated by a left-handed individual. This connection leads Robert to believe that the same person is responsible for both the acts and that there is a bigger, more complex picture to consider. As he ends the call, we see his apartment is a testament to his tireless pursuit of the truth. Papers and technology dedicated to investigating Susan's murder strewn all around. He then looks outside to see the wall half done and Miles nowhere to be found. He grabs his gun and leaves. He enters Hood territory and immediately knocks out the guard and takes his pistol. Upstairs, he quickly takes out 2 men, and then we see Miles hanging out with a gang. They give him a gun and tell him don't come back until the clip is empty. Robert shows them a proper gangster's behavior, and with dual-wield guns, he tells Miles to go. Downstairs, Miles goes off at him, but Robert tells him if he's so eager to be a gangster, let's jumpstart his career, putting a gun to his own head as Miles holds it. He buckles. Then Robert takes the gun back and gives him a mad lecture that his boys are merely just boys, nothing more. He tells him to decide his choice and leaves. He returns home until he hears a knock. He opens to find Miles there, telling him that he finished painting the wall. They talk for a bit until Miles says he can repaint his house wall, but Robert tells him he'll agree to it if he reads a book he hands him. Robert returns to his day job as a Lyft driver, picking up a seemingly ordinary passenger. The man is heading to the airport to catch a flight overseas to visit his daughter. However, as the journey progresses, Robert becomes suspicious of the passenger's odd behavior. His instincts prove right when the man suddenly brandishes a knife and lunges at Robert. Robert violently swerves the car, throwing the attacker off balance and stopping his attempts to stab him. Amidst the chaos, Robert manages to break his arm, forcing the man to pull a gun out. Robert is quicker, disarming him and ultimately killing him. To eliminate any evidence linking him to the passenger's death, Robert retrieves the man's phone and sets his car on fire with the remains inside the car. The following morning, Robert heads to Dave's house. Inside, he's introduced to Dave's wife and their 2 young girls. As the family heads off to start their day, Robert seizes the opportunity to share the unsettling events from his previous day with Dave. Robert sets the assassin's mobile phone he'd obtained and places it onto the table. He dials a certain number, and to their surprise, Dave's own cell starts to ring, unveiling him as the orchestrator behind the string of murders. Dave ends up confessing to his crimes. He rationalizes his actions by claiming he had turned into a mercenary after feeling betrayed by the government. The murder of Susan was a necessary evil, he argues, as she would have eventually unraveled his involvement in the Belgium murders. Following the revelation, Dave escorts Robert outdoors, introducing him to Resnick, Ari, and Kovac, the trio performing the killings under Dave's directive. In a bitter twist of irony, these are the very men whom Robert had trained while they were all in the CIA. Robert tells them that their mistake was killing Susan, and now each one of them will taste death. He promises that he will have his revenge for what they did to her, and then he tells Dave's wife that Dave said she can drop him off at the station. He adopts a playful gun hand gesture, picking up Dave's daughter in his arms, which makes him burn inside. One afternoon, Dave and his 3 companions set off for Brian's residence with an intention to eliminate him. However, their plan is thwarted as they find the house empty. Anticipating their move, Robert had previously escorted Brian to a safe house. Riled by this failed mission, the men reroutes to Robert's home. Miles is currently engrossed in painting the interior. Sensing danger, Miles instantly reaches out to Robert. Swiftly, Robert accesses his surveillance camera feed, directing Miles to conceal himself in a secret compartment. Miles, from behind a two-way mirror, watches Dave, his fear escalating rapidly. Dave grows suspicious of the mirror and is just about to shoot at it when his phone rings. Robert, on the other line, claims to be at a location that is known to both of them. Believing that they've been led away, a relieved Miles emerges from his hiding spot. However, his sense of safety is short-lived as he finds himself cornered and held at gunpoint by Dave's men. The narrative transitions to Robert heading to a small town where he once used to live with his wife. This town is undergoing an evacuation due to an impending storm and hurricane. Despite the danger, Dave and his associates arrive and gain forceful entry into the town, eliminating an officer in the process. They infiltrate Robert's former home, scrutinizing every inch of the property for any sign of him, yet finding none. Their search of the neighboring area, which also proves futile. Opting for a bird's-eye view, Dave stations himself on a tower to supervise his 3 colleagues as they diverge to locate Robert. Robert, however, possesses a wealth of experience and skill that surpasses that of his adversaries combined. He has cunningly laid traps which his pursuers unknowingly stumble upon. Kovac, who enters the shop believing he spotted Robert, is swiftly killed by a harpoon going right through him. Ari, who attempts to follow suit, is intercepted by Robert, who executes a swift and lethal series of slashes across his body. Lastly, Resnick, who chases Robert into another store, is eliminated by an explosive trap. From his vantage point atop the tower, Dave, peering through a sniper rifle, manages to connect with Robert over a call. He reveals that he has Miles captive, locked in a car trunk, and threatens to execute him if Robert refuses to surrender. Despite Dave's warning shots, Robert remains elusive. Just as Dave targets the car holding Miles, Robert counters by shooting the car's tire, causing Dave's shot to miss. In a frantic search for Robert, Dave is caught off guard to find him already atop the tower, initiating a face-off. Dave lunges to stab Robert, but Robert's speed outmatches him, causing him to miss. Amid the violent backdrop of the looming hurricane, Robert retaliates by gouging out Dave's eye, grabbing his knife to impale him, and then finally slicing him from behind, killing him. Robert concludes by hurling Dave off the tower, where he meets his end against the jagged rocks below, and is subsequently swept away by the violent ocean waves. Robert swiftly moves to locate Miles. Finding the young man trembling in agony from a gunshot wound to his leg, Robert transports the wounded Miles to his old home for first aid. Amidst tending to Miles, Robert finds himself gazing at a framed picture of his deceased wife, Vivian. As the film nears its conclusion, we observe Miles on a bus en route to art school. Fatima, Robert's neighbor, discovers the mural on the wall that uncannily mirrors a scene from her homeland. An inscription on the opposing wall reads, "I leave you with the best of myself." The narrative unfolds to reveal Sam being reunited with his sister Magda. Robert had intervened, leveraging some strings to bring them back together. In a final scene, we see Robert in his old house standing contemplatively as he gazes out towards the serene sea, marking the end of the tumultuous journey.